Hi, I'm Kara Gott-Warner, editor of Creative Knitting Magazine, and I'm really excited because the spring 2015 issue of the magazine just went on sale. And you may or may not know this, but with every issue of the magazine, we do an exciting knit-along. And for this issue, we're doing a knit-along for these exciting washcloths. I'm going to hold one up for you here. It is part of the Learn a Stitch, Share the Love feature. And I'm going to show you, you'll see this in the magazine if you already have your copy. And it's 4 exciting stitch patterns that you will learn while you're making 4 exciting washcloths. They're made with Clio, which is a 100% mercerized Pima cotton, and that's from Plymouth Yarn. So if you want to learn more about that yarn, you can go to Annie's, and then just in the search box, just click Plymouth Yarn, and then you can find the yarn from there. And these 4 patterns are our gift to you for as long as the spring issue is on the newsstand. So go grab your copy now at creativeknittingmagazine.com. So you may be thinking, what exactly is a knit-along? Well, it's exactly that. You knit along, and you just kind of get together with other knitters. Sometimes you get to meet the designer, you can ask questions, and make new friends along the way. So it's always a whole lot of fun. And this takes place on Ravelry, on the Creative Knitting Ravelry fans group. So you can go over to Ravelry, log in, and just start a conversation. So basically, in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a few important stitches that will really help you with this knit-along. And they'll be in these 4 washcloth patterns. And let's take a look at these 4 stitch patterns briefly before we get started with the tutorial. First one is a textured pattern, which consists of knits and purls, as you can see here. Very pretty little accents. And then the second washcloth is a 1x2 cable. So we're actually going to learn how to work a 1x2 cable so you can get a feel for what it's like to work with a cable needle. Very handy to have when you're working a cable. And then open work. So we've got our open work washcloth. So we're going to learn some of those basic stitches that you use when you're knitting lace and open work. And our final stitch pattern is in mitered square. So this is more about understanding the anatomy of how a mitered square comes together. I like to use that word anatomy because it really is a very interesting process, and it's very geometric too. And I think that's why I really love working miters. So I think you'll enjoy this. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a few basic stitches that will really help you out with this knit-along. And as you can see here, I started working the washcloth, and I'm up to row 7. So I worked halfway through row 7, and so you can see these little cables that I've started to form, which you can also see here on the actual sample, the actual washcloth, with these little stitches that kind of move over. And that's our 1x2 cable, and I'll explain why it's 2, because you're crossing 2 stitches over. The cable is crossing 2 stitches. So I'm going to start with this row 7, and I'm going to use a cable needle. I have some here. I'm going to use this blue one. But you can also see there are a few others here. There's many different shapes and sizes of cable needles. I think that one that's shaped like this is perfect for when you're just starting out, because your stitches will not move. They will not escape. All right, so now we're taking a look at the cabled washcloth, and you can see my swatch here just started, or my washcloth is right up to row 7. I actually worked half of row 7 because this is the cable row. So you'll see, if you take a look at your pattern, row 3 and row 7 are the rows where the 1x2 cable is actually worked. So this time we're going to just jump right into row 7, and I'm going to show you how to work the 1x2 left cross. Okay, we're going to work to the point in your pattern where it says there's a star, so it's the section, it's the repeat. So it says purl 1, 1 by 2 left cross, purl 1, knit 1. And that's the section that you're going to repeat across to the last 4 stitches. Okay, so let's get started here. I'm going to start by purling 1 stitch, and you can follow along with me. So we're going to purl as indicated. Then we're going to pick up our cable needle, and we're going to slide that first stitch on the left-hand needle and place it on that cable needle and just let it sit at the front for just a few seconds. And then you're going to knit 2 stitches. That's what that indicates by the 1 by 2, because it's 1 stitch here. That's your cable. It's going to cross these 2 stitches. So we just worked those 2 stitches. Then take your stitch from the cable needle, place it back on the left hand needle, and then knit that stitch. Oops. It's that easy. And that's pretty much it. And then when you get to the end of the row, you're going to have these last 4 stitches. These are like your little frame stitches here. And you're just going to knit those 4. And that's how you work a 1 by 2 left cross. Okay, so now we're going to start our lace washcloth pattern. And I have the washcloth right here in front of me, and you can see that there's all these really pretty holes and open work pattern that's on this particular washcloth. And we're going to work across row 1 together, because I'm going to show you some basic stitches that you will need to know when you're working any kind of lace and open work pattern. And those stitches are SSK and knit 2 together and a yarn over. And those are the stitches that we're going to focus on for this little short tutorial. So I worked the first 5 rows in the pattern, and now we're just going to jump right in together. So if you want to pull out your pattern and start on row 1 with me, and I'm just going to start off by knitting 6 stitches. Okay, so that's pretty basic. And then we're going to work a yarn over. So that's our first basic stitch, lace stitch that we want to focus on here. And then an SSK. So this is done by slipping 1 stitch knitwise, then slipping another stitch knitwise. And then you're taking your left hand needle and you're putting it back through those stitches, and you're just basically knitting them together. And what that does is it creates a left leaning decrease, which you can kind of see here. And that's what helps you get this like interesting undulating open work look, including the yarn overs. The yarn overs are what make those holes stand out. They're very pretty. So we just worked the SSK, then we're going to knit 1, then we're going to knit 2 together, and that creates a decrease that actually leans to the right. You can't see it so much here, but it's right. It creates a right leaning decrease. And then we're going to yarn over, and then we're going to knit. And then we're going to yarn over again. And that's the repeat. So let's start that again so you can get the hang of it. So let's start with the SSK. So how we do that again is slip 1 knitwise, slip another stitch knitwise, then take that left hand needle, put it back through those stitches, and then just knit them together. And that creates a left leaning decrease. Sorry, knit 1, then knit 2 together, then yarn over, knit 1, let's yarn over again, and that's our repeat. Let's do it just one more time, So we're going to work that SSK, so it's slip 1 knitwise, slip the second stitch knitwise. Now why do you do that? The reason why you do that is because you're changing the orientation of your stitch so that it leans to the left. Take that left hand needle, put it back through, and knit those 2 together. And then we're going to knit 1, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1, and yarn over. And that is it for the repeat. Okay, so we just worked halfway across the first row of the lace washcloth pattern. Now go ahead and work to the end of the row and practice your SSKs and your other decreased stitches so you can get the hang of some of those basic stitches that you'll need for working lace. So let's move on to working our mitered washcloth. All right, so now we're going to work our final washcloth. It's the mitered washcloth, and I just have the washcloth and a washcloth in progress laid out so you can see the actual anatomy of a mitered square. I have to say that miters are my absolute favorite technique, and because they're just so clever, and here's why. If you take a look at the finished washcloth, you can see that the cast-on edge runs along the right side of the square and the bottom part of the square, and then up the center are where we decrease to the end. The bind off is actually way up here. You fasten it off actually. And then we have these really pretty, this pretty openwork section here, and I'm going to show you in a few seconds. I'm going to show you how to work a slip purl through the back loops, which is a little bit tricky. But anyway, so I'm using a circular needle. We are working back and forth, so we're not working in the round. And the reason I have it on a circular needle is because you're able to see the square form, and most importantly though, it is because you're casting on for this square 108 stitches. So 108 stitches don't rest very comfortably on a straight needle, in my opinion, because when you're decreasing those center stitches, it just kind of gets all crunched up or jumbled up. So I really like this method. And also, you'll see a safety pin on the front of the work. I do this depending on the stitch pattern I'm working on, but I do this because it reminds me of the right side row, and I like to know that so I don't have to do too much thinking. And then a stitch marker here for this pattern. Now there's many ways to work a mitered square. Some patterns will tell you to count your stitches across and work your decreases, but counting is just, sometimes it's too much, where a stitch marker actually eliminates the need to count, and I really like that. So I'm going to jump right in, and we're going to work. Let me move this over so we can see a little bit of this while we're working. But really what is the most important aspect of this is the slip purl, which is what I'm going to show you. But before that, we just learned when we worked the lace pattern, we learned how to work an SSK and a knit two together. So we've got a left leaning decrease and we have a right leaning decrease. And those two decreases are what we use in this mitered square, which you can see on the finished square and you can see in my square that's in progress. And those are the decreases that are running along the center. And every time you decrease, you're kind of bringing those stitches in, so we've got this square that keeps being formed all the way through. So instead of showing you those here, I'm going to show you something new because we already know those stitches. So you've got those in your back pocket. So now we're just going to jump right into row 10, which is the open work row that you see on your finished square. So pick up your needle if you're working on a circular like I am, or your needles, and let's jump right into this. So I've worked the first few stitches. I'm right up to the repeat, and it starts with a yarn over. And I'm going to take this slow. It's really simple. It's just 2 stitches. Well, two, an SSP and a yarn over. The yarn over comes first, and I'll do that. So it's yarn over, then slip, slip, knit. And we're going to slip one as if to knit, right? Knitwise. Slip the second stitch as if to knit. And it says knitwise in your pattern, and that's what that means. And now you can see, as we did with the SSK that we learned earlier, that those stitches have changed their orientation. Now slip them back. You can do it one at a time or together. I always do them together. Either way is fine. Now we still have that yarn over here, so don't forget your yarn over. Now this is the tricky part. We're going to purl these 2 stitches together through the back loops. So then get ready to purl. Now you're going to take your right hand needle, go behind. Might be tricky to see this, but what we're doing is we're going to the back of those 2 stitches. You see what I just did there? So we went through the back. And now purl those together and then lift those off. You see what happened? So this is now a left leaning decrease. And the reason that we actually had to purl those through the back loop is so that we could catch that yarn over, not lose that yarn over. And it keeps the left leaning decrease in this case. But you can kind of get the idea. But anyway, so let's start again. I just want you to remember to learn how to read your knitting at all times, because then that will help you feel more confident. So let's do that yarn over. So the repeat, yarn over, SSP, which is a slip, slip, purl. So we're going to slip that first stitch knitwise, slip the second stitch knitwise, then place those 2 stitches back on the left hand needle, then get ready to purl, take your right hand needle, go through the back. This is where it helps to have a needle tip that's very pointy like this one, because then it's so easy to go in and knit through the back loops, as you can see. And that's it. So go ahead and practice across to the end of this row, and well, actually when you get to the marker you will actually work a purl 2 together, but you know how to do that. It's pretty simple. I think the trickiest part was actually learning how to purl through the back loops on this one. And then when you get to the end, you'll just knit those last 4 stitches. Well, that wraps things up. I hope you enjoyed this short tutorial. Now the next step is to hop on over to creativeknittingmagazine.com and download your free pattern for these washcloths. I think you're really going to enjoy the knit along. And then go on over to splendidsticks.com and you'll learn about all the details that you'll need to get started and have fun with the knit along. So if you need to refresh yourself, come on back and check out this video, because it's always hanging out in the archives. And if you have ideas for a tutorial or a new video that you'd like to see, please contact me at editor@creativeknittingmagazine.com. And now go check out the spring issue of Creative Knitting by going to creativeknittingmagazine.com. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.